Teri Williams, COO, president of One United Bank. We're talking SVB, but we're not really talking about the Silicon Valley crash. I want to get into a little more, and I know Omi wants to get in as well. There are people that have north of $250,000. And right now, the market is a little crazy. It was up today, crashed last week. We're in a bear market that, has fits and starts and stops. It's unstable. Bonds are unstable. Like the inflation is high. Real estate interest rates are high. There are very few places besides your bra where the money could be safe or under your mattress, right? I feel like that's where we are right now. We're back to where my grandmama was, where we keeping our money in our bras. So yeah, I'm actually a D cup, but I wear a G cup for the money that I keep in my bra. Don't try it though. Don't try it. I know Kung Fu. That said, Teri Williams, if people are putting large sums of money, as we saw with SVP, somebody was like $4 million in an account for what? Why would someone do that? Talk about the kinds of ways, because I want people to aspire, as well. Like what do we do with those large sums of money?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. So, one of the benefits that banks provide is that your money is safe, that you don't have to worry about, whether the stock market's up or down, today, that money is available. And, a lot of times that money, the money people have in banks is for a purpose. It could be saving to buy a house. It could be, and by the way, even though mortgage rates are higher, they actually are not high in comparison to historic highs. So I do want to say that, 6-7%, they used to be, some of us remember when it was 13%, when it was 21%. Those were just ridiculously high mortgage rates at the time. So they're much higher than they were, but they're still not high in comparison to history. But I say that to say that, the benefit of banks, and a lot of people had this money in the account of SVP because they used it to borrow against. They also had a loan from SVB, and SVP may have required them to keep a certain amount of deposit in the bank, or they were using it because they were investing it in technology, and so they needed that money to be available, and they didn't want to take the risk of the market going down today or. So, banks are safe. It's a safe place to put your money. And that is still the case today.
Yeah, I think another thing I'll just add to that, because it was startups, right? And it was Silicon Valley. They were when you, let's say, go through Techstars, you're going to get an investment. Well, Techstars uses Silicon Valley Bank. So you would have to, depending on the size of that investment, sometimes just at $250K. Y Combinator is another example. Like they're having their startups that come through them also bank with Silicon Valley Bank. And so as they raise more rounds of funding, so they're raising a $3 million round, a $4 million round, like I said, Roblox was one of the companies that was in there, right? So if they're on their series, D, you know what I mean? There's no telling how much money they're raising, and all that money going into Silicon Valley Bank because of the idea of their risk tolerance for startups.
So as you're saying that, Omi, what kinds of ways, can we funnel money into, because it's strengthened, there's strength in numbers, right? So the tech companies giving money to these startups, but telling these startups they have to put their money in this bank, it creates this funnel of money that, builds a bank up really quickly, because I hadn't heard of this bank, right, until it crashed. But it was one of the 20 largest banks in this country. It was like, what? How? And you just told us how, right? So tech money seems infinite. It's trillions of dollars being thrown. All right, I'm investing you, but you got to put this much in there. Is there a model, both of you actually, that would funnel money into, say, a One United that would help our community the same way?
Well, I wouldn't ask Ms. Williams around risk tolerance, because I also think because they were so uniquely positioned in the startup community that it was more favorable for people maybe to put their money there because they had a different level of risk tolerance. What do you think will happen now? I'm curious too. So to kind of add to Karen's question, I'm curious around like, will banks consider like to go like, hey, way more conservative? Or is it kind of like a, hey, we told y'all to be more conservative? You know, is it like a, see, this is why we don't do that? Like, what do you think? Like, what do you think, but what's happening among the banker community? I'm curious, in conversations about this.
Yeah. So there's no question there's going to be a little more conservatism that's happening in banking because of this. Anybody that says something different isn't telling you the truth. There's definitely going to be more conservatism, because this, for lack of a better term, sort of blew up. And I do think that what it's clear is that there's a need for conservatism, but there's also a need for investing in startups and providing banking services to the startup community. Maybe it needs to be spread over more banks and not, sort of concentrated in one. Maybe those startups need to, when they get those investments from the various VCs, they then need to take that cash and spread it over more banks than just keeping it in one. There will be a new, one of the things about banking, people always say, well, how does this keep happening? Why does it keep happening that banks have this? And the reality is that the same thing doesn't keep happening. Different things happen. So in this case, this was a particular thing that I will say won't happen again, because people will come up with solutions to this. And the solutions will be to diversify your deposit base, because that concentration meant that somebody could just with their phone or on their computer, they lost $42 billion in deposits in one day. 42 billion. So that again, because you have a concentration of depositors, and so you get, whatever number it was, to just move their money very quickly, and it put the bank at risk. So that's not going to happen again. But at the same time, what we do want the financial community and banks to provide services to startups. That's how, we get inventions and new ways of doing things. And, some of the businesses that were with SVB were outstanding businesses. I mean, some of them were, past the startup stage. I mean, they were rolling. And so, we do want to make sure that those businesses obtain the services that they have, but the risk just needs to be spread around more and not concentrated. And then, Karen, to your point, how do Black banks participate? And we're finding a lot of companies, again, since George Floyd, since, the pandemic, a lot of corporations are putting deposits in One United Bank and other Black banks. I can give you a list of companies that were not customers before, but have become customers. However, I do want to make sure that this SVB does not stop that from going forward. Where companies would be like, ooh, I don't know, because, this could blow up on me. Because our deposits are FDIC insured, and they do, our corporate deposits do help us do, what we need to do for our community. So, a lot of the Black banks, we looking around and say, okay, don't look at us sideways because this happened, because this wasn't us,
Right.
This is our problem. And, continue to support us, because we need, those big dollars in order to do what we do for our community.